A controversial United States Supreme Court decision issued at the end of June will affect the way public employee labor unions can collect dues from some members. The High Court ruled 5-4, including retiring Associate Justice Anthony Kennedy, that public employees had a right not to financially support a union. The justices said that payment of these dues could be seen as a form of compelled speech, a violation of the First Amendment. It's estimated that this ruling could affect as many as 5 million public employees in 22 states, including California, New York, and Illinois. In a previous program, we talked with the president of the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO, Rick Bloomingdale, about this ruling. This week, we present another viewpoint on this issue. Our guest is Elizabeth Stell, Director of Policy Analysis for the Commonwealth Foundation, a conservative think tank. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
While the public employee unions are very upset about this ruling, organizations like yours are happy. What do you like about this?
Well, it's tremendous. This is really a victory for individual worker rights across the country, as you mentioned. But it's really important here in Pennsylvania because we have over 300,000 government workers who will now have a true choice. They can choose to be members of the union and pay the dues, or they can choose to be non-members and they don't have to pay a fee. No longer is it a choice between paying a fee and keeping your job. So we're really excited about the decision.
And we're talking public employees at all levels, like teachers in our local school districts, right?
Teachers, correctional officers, folks who work in the different state agencies. It affects all public sector or government union workers.
Well, the unions, of course, say that, hey, we're bargaining on behalf of these employees. We're getting them pay raises. Why shouldn't people who are part of that collective bargaining unit be required to pay something into it?
Well, the problem with the current status quo before Janus is that it was based on coercion. People didn't have a choice. Today, government workers can't choose to negotiate their own contracts because of state law. So unions are more than welcome to pursue a change of state law so they only have to represent their members. But until that happens, they're compelled to represent everyone. And there are many teachers, many state workers across the state who would prefer to do their own negotiations. But before Janus, they were forced to actually pay the union to do something that they wanted to do on their own.
I got what you say. I mean, bottom line is that let's take teachers, for example. If the state law were changed, they could essentially negotiate their own salaries with their school districts and not be by either the PFT or the PSEA. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that could happen. So it's really up to the unions. They can decide what they want to do with this decision, but it's not a mandate on them by government that says they have to represent everyone. But going back to the individual workers, it's just tremendous that they now have this choice, because I've talked to many teachers who did not agree with the political stance of the teachers union, yet they were forced to fund their political activities. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do that. You can't force someone to support political speech that they disagree with.
And that, of course, is a distinction, because we're talking one hand contract negotiation, which might be one thing, but the other would be the political activity of a union. And just like corporations under Citizens United can spend their corporate assets, shareholders' money, so can a union now do the same. And that's where you're saying it's an abridgment, really, of the freedom of speech and choice of the individual union member?
Sure, people may not understand how political government unions are, but they're extremely political bodies. And when you look at how much of dues actually go just to the negotiation process of a contract versus all of the political activities, it's minimal. In teachers unions, it's roughly 20% actually goes to contract negotiations. The rest goes to overhead, goes to political advocacy. And the Supreme Court said you really can't distinguish between dues and fees and all these other buckets of money. It's all used in a political way, so you can't force people to fund your politics.
Well, let me ask you this. What about the other unions? You know, I'm a member of a union. It's not a public employee union, but the members of trade unions, members of service unions, in my case, SAG-AFTRA, we're required to pay dues. Does this Supreme Court ruling, is it going to affect us too?
Not currently. There could be another case in the future, but the Janus case only applies to government workers. They are governed under different sets of laws. But at the Commonwealth Foundation, we believe that all individual workers should have a choice, they should have a voice. So we don't want anyone to be forced to join a union or pay for services that they don't want. So we would hope that someday this could expand to all workers, but presently we're only looking at the government sector.
Final question, Elizabeth. Would you say that unions do have a role to play in America today? Or is your organization intent on just driving all the unions out of existence?
I think unions have a tremendous opportunity to really show their value to members now, to refocus on what their members want. And so we'll see what they choose to do with that. On our end, we're working to make sure that people are notified of their new rights. We have some legislation working in Harrisburg right now, because it's extremely important that people understand the choice they have under the new decision.
Well, Elizabeth Stell, thank you so much for coming in. I hope you'll come back again and give us your perspective and point of view on a lot of these great issues. We appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more of the Sunday Business Page in just a few moments. Stick with us.